eventually every creator requires a top-down setup, some way to get a flat lay or to film an unboxing, something like that. You're all going to need that eventually. Now, to tell you the truth, I've gone through a number of iterations over the last 10 years. I've tried jury rigging, all sorts of things to try and get the best setup and the most flexible usage that I can get. Most of them have had problem after problem after problem, but I have finally come across two situations, two different ways of doing it that I think are the best and most ideal way to set things up. The first one that I'm going to show you is the one that I've been using for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years. It has become a mainstay in my studio, and it's using a C-stand. So let's just jump 2 feet over there and I'll show it to you. This right here is a C-stand. You can't see all of it right now, but it's basically a glorified light stand, although a lot more practical and a lot more useful. This one here is about $150 from Amazon. You can find them on all sorts of places. It's not quite as heavy duty as what they use on a film set, but it is absolutely ideal for home studio purposes and will last you a very, very long time. Anyway, for an overhead cam shot for over your table or your drawing or your artworks, whatever you're doing, very, very easy and very, very simple to set up. This part on top comes right off. It's called a knuckle. If I spin this around, you'll see, whoops, let me just loosen it like that. If you spin it around, you see that you've got a knob on that side and that one here. This one here, of course, locks the spinning axis there, and this one holds this boom arm and allows you to swivel it up and down. So if I lock that up so that it is leveled off, we can turn it around, swing it out if we need to, and swing it back. And you will have just noticed I do have another knuckle on the other end, and that's where this process comes in. This one right here is where you're going to attach your camera. Now, what you want to do is you want to lock this in position so it doesn't move around. And in my pocket here, I've got what's called a spigot. It's just basically a bar. On one end, it's got a 1/4 inch thread, and on the other, a 3/8. This side, 3/8, is for tripod heads and things like that. The 1/4 inch is for cameras. It just fits right into this little bit right here, and you'll lock it down. Make sure it's nice and tight because you don't want it to move or go anywhere. Turn this around, level it off so it's pointing straight down, and then you just grab your camera. Let me grab it from over here, and with that 1/4 inch thread on the bottom, you're gonna lock that into place. And then once that's done, just a simple case of positioning. So with this one, let's go, I'll do it this way, vertical like that, and turn it like that. And now we have an overhead cam pointing straight down. We can swivel this out and back as needed. We can move it further out. We can do all sorts of things. And the nice thing about this setup is that if the situation requires that you have maybe sort of an awkward situation, all the different points of articulation, I could raise this up. I could then lower, let me just grab this carefully, lower this down. I can then straighten that up like that and level up my camera. And of course, it would probably be further down here. If I've got to get over something, then yeah, I can get into all sorts of position. Really, really handy, really, really practical. The really nice thing about this is it's quick, it's easy to set up, and when you're not using it for overhead table cam stuff, you've got a C-stand that you can use for so many other practical purposes. These things really are the lifeblood of my studio here. Finally, I just want to say, like as I mentioned, that spigot has 2 threads on it. This works. This is a basic setup. If you want a little bit more precision, a little bit more control, you can flip that spigot around and you can attach a ball head joint or something like that, any kind of tripod head on it, and then you have a little bit more precision to handle it however you want. And the final note is, if this is not stable enough for you, if this is not working, it is possible to get a second one of these and just join both of these. Instead of this single overhead boom, you'd have more of a goal post design with a nice set of solid posts on either side, which would lock everything in position. Anyway, let's go back to the other version of me. So as I said, that's what I've been using for the last 4 or 5 years or so. What I said at the end about the goalpost, that's the way I had things set up. One C-stand on either side of my desk with that bar over the top. That way I could do my table sections, I could do my openings and all that sort of stuff. I could do detailed things, but I could also do live streams where I could switch to that camera. I could be talking here, and then I could switch to the table section. It was nice. It was solid. It was reliable. It did kind of take up a lot of space over here, and because I like to work in a turnkey system, which means that I like to be able to sit down and work at any point in time, it meant that I had two stands permanently set up. They never got broken down. They lived in that position, and that after a while started to bother me because I wanted to use those C-stands for other things. The other thing that changed is that I started filming larger objects that couldn't fit on the specific desk that I had here, so I did need to move it anyway. And because I like to work with a turnkey system, I went for a different solution, which is 1 foot over that way. So let's go to that one. This right here is my current overhead rig. This is the OH100 from Glide Gear. As you can see, I've got it set up on the table to the side of my desk, and I pretty much got everything rigged out. I've got a light box on the back here, which is filling in some light here. The rest of my studio light fills in the shadows. I've got my camera attached dead center and facing straight down. Now I will point out that this bar across here can be lowered. It's not a simple process. The whole thing needs to be disassembled and taken apart, so it's not something that you do too often. But if you do need lower, you can do that. And of course, you've got plenty of room on here to mount things high or low. I've done some modifications. I've added a quick release plate there. It's a lot more practical for me. I can pull this camera off at a moment's notice or spin it around, so I have a vertical aspect there. There are mounting points all along the top and bottom of this bar. They are 1/4 inch thread, so I've got a magic arm with a field monitor so I can see what I'm doing down here, see exactly how it's being captured. And because it's on a magic arm, if I'm doing vertical, I'll just flip that around quite easily. If I wanted to attach a microphone to here, I could, but I've got a microphone for my desktop that I use a lot, so it's just right here on the side. I can just pull that in if needed, but normally it's out of the way. I've got a board for a background, which works really well for me because I can pull this off and I can have the white table as a background. I can put in colored paper. I can switch to other boards, other backgrounds at a moment's notice. Fairly easy. And the nice thing about all this setup is that aside from the wiring, which needs to be dealt with, this entire thing can be lifted off the table at any point in time, and I can put it in a different position for filming over there if I need to, or I can use the table for other purposes. I'll tell you the truth, I do plan on replacing this table at some point. It is a little bit wobbly. That's just the table that's not this, and it hasn't really been an issue so far, but I'd like to take care of that. And when I do, it's possible depending on the table, but there are some mounting points on the feet right here where you can actually attach it right to the table. Reduces the ability to move it around, but it will make it completely rock steady. When I put this together, it literally took me all of 6 minutes to screw everything together, but despite that, it is well made. It is a solid metal construction, heavy duty. It's almost like Bakelite, it's not, but Bakelite style knobs. Very well manufactured and well put together, and it's doing the job really well. And that's the secondary solution. As you can see, it's not quite as flexible. You can't use it for other purposes, really. It does actually, I forgot to show you, it does have two little things where you can actually use it as a backdrop stand if you're doing tabletop photography and that sort of stuff. But other than that, you can't use it for manipulating lights or holding flags or doing anything else that you would do with a C-stand. But it is a solid turnkey setup. That is always there on my table. It is right to within arm's reach. I can always swing around and work there. In fact, the same microphone that you saw there, that's this one right here. It just swings. It's that close. This has been nice. It means that that overhead frame is gone. It's no longer there, so I feel more open, more spacious, but it also means that I have a dedicated larger space and I can change it, the background and all that sort of stuff over there. My recommendation for most people is not that, it's actually the C-stand, because you deserve to have a C-stand in your creative life. Once you get one, you will get 2, 3, or 4. Down the line, you will start building them up because they are so very useful, so very functional, and it is a very fast and easy way to set things up. That said, if like me, you like a turnkey system, be prepared to have 1 or 2 stands locked into that unless you go for that setup. Also be prepared that you do need a little bit more room. If you're working in a small bedroom, if you're working in a shed or something, you might not have as much room around you for something that large. Then this case works best for you. if you do have studio space, creator space that you can expand into, then C-stands are very, very handy. Now, they do store away quite easily. They fold up, they sit in the corner, you can stack one on the other. Not a lot of space that way, but when you're using it, they're all elbows and knees. They stick out in all directions. It's just the downfall of a C-stand, but they are fantastic. I have enjoyed using the C-stand for a number of different things, a number of different purposes, but specifically that tabletop purpose that I turned it to for so many years, it is fantastic. And I will still go back to it for that when I need to do things that are away from this table. That said, this setup here from Glide Gear, it literally cost me, I can't remember the exact price I paid. It varies, you know what Amazon's like, but it was under $200 Australian. It is solid, it is well built, it is actually very, very convenient to be able to hang things like microphones or that monitor or extra lights or anything like that. And that is an ideal situation for someone who's got the space to dedicate a table to it and they want to do a lot. If you're constantly doing table stuff, if you're always doing top-down unboxings or demonstrations of how to build something, etc., if you're doing artwork, that sort of work, this is a phenomenal price for what it is. It is a well-built, thought out piece of kit. Very simple, very straightforward. And to tell you the truth, 8-10 years ago when I started this, the closest you could get to this cost you about $600. They have come down in price, but the quality is still there. So I hope that I've guided you one way or another into some better practices and helped out some of your woes. If I have, please leave a comment down below. Let me know. I always like to hear back from people. And yeah, with that, I guess I'm done. So yeah, stay creative.